this module is called Life Choices, and it outlines 3 distinct approaches to living and shows what are the outcomes from these 3 approaches to living. And then what I want to do is to outline 7 distinct areas of life and show how these 3 different approaches to life, what the distinctive qualities are in each of these areas and what the outcomes will be. So there's quite a lot of detail here. And the idea is that by becoming aware of what kind of approach we have towards life in these particular areas and what kind of outcomes we're getting as a result, then we'll have more choice what kind of outcome we want and correspondingly what kind of approach we need to take within each of these areas of life. So there are 3 basic strategies for living in the world, and they correspond to 3 basic processes in the world: creation, maintenance, and destruction. These things are going on all the time. And the 3 approaches, according to the Vedic way of looking at things, the 3 approaches are: one is positive harmonious approach, which corresponds to maintenance. It means that a person who's in this mode is in harmony with, in positive harmony with essential reality, in positive harmony with, we can say, the divine principles, the basic principles of life. Then the creative approach, one who is constantly making new things, this tends to be passionate and also confused. So we see this in life as well, that people are hyperactive, we can say, very, very much given to activity without so much thought, without so much consideration about the actual results, final results, and confused in their philosophy and their understanding. And the third approach, we can refer to it as the ignorant and destructive approach, where somebody has little or no understanding of the real basic principles of life, the real basic principles that govern the universe. They act without that understanding for immediate gratification, and they, generally speaking, they destroy their own environment and they destroy their own well-being as well. So these 3 approaches are there. I'd just like to give a little more detail on these 3 different approaches. First of all, the positive harmonious approach. A person who's acting in this way, their activities, generally speaking, they're free from distress. They may be in distressing situation, but they're not so much attached to the environment. So they can be free from distress, and they're happy in the sense that they're not dependent on enjoying the environment. They're happy in themselves. They're aware of themselves, aware of their own needs, aware of their qualities, aware of the qualities of consciousness, and they're acting in harmony with the regular self-evident principles, the real principles of life. So consequently, they're gaining maximum happiness and they're getting minimum distress. Their approach to life is philosophical in the sense that they see that I'm conscious, consciousness doesn't change, it's eternal, I'm living in the changing world of matter, and I don't really belong here, but still I have to live in harmony with the principles that govern the material world, and I've got to maximize my realization of my conscious potential and at the same time maintain my position and perform my duties here in the material world. So it's a philosophical, it's harmonious, and it's positive. Results of this, actually this gives the highest kind of satisfaction. It's difficult at first because you're not really going with the flow. It doesn't look as though you're going with the flow, it's an effort. So in Bhagavad Gita, for example, it says that this kind of activity at first it's like poison, but it's nectar in the end. Nectar is an interesting word. Nectar means it's the gods are drinking nectar, and it means they become immortal. So one who follows the principles, the divine principles, self-consistent principles of life, ultimately he can come to the platform of realizing his pure conscious potential and actually become eternal. Of course, we're already eternal, but we don't realize it at the moment. The second approach is the confused, passionate approach. So the understanding here is less. They understand that it's necessary to follow rules in order to get results. These people, or not these people, but this approach, it's focused on getting results so that I can enjoy and so that I can control. Want to control the world, and they want to enjoy the facilities in the world. So in this approach, one understands that there are certain rules that you have to follow in order to get success. But they won't necessarily understand that what's the basis of those rules. In other words, there are different sets of rules. So there's a set of rules for following the self-consistent principles that govern the universe. There's other rules that give you success at the first, but the results may not be in harmony with divine principles. So the qualities, these people often, they come off as authorities. They look very, very impressive. And it seems as though they have massive backing. Quite often we see in modern society, people appear very polished, very authoritative. But if you look behind, you find, look at what's backing it up. For example, in the previous module, we discussed modern scientists, physical scientists. So they have massive backing, financing, huge apparatus, and tremendous apparatus for propagating their results. Museums, books, TV, films, education, everything. But the principles that they're putting out are not self-consistent. They're not consistent with facts, and they're not self-consistent. So it's like a huge bluff in a sense. Some of these people are bluffing themselves, some of these people are bluffing others. So the principles are not self-consistent, even though it may look very impressive. It's good for people with initiative, with flair, but without a great deal of a tendency to reflect on the final results of what they're doing, the effects of what they're doing. The principles, two main principles are, first of all, I'm the enjoyer, and the second is I'm the controller. In other words, the idea is that the basic principle of life is to control nature, to control other people, to control the environment in order to get what I need. And then the second is that I am the enjoyer. I'm going to enjoy the facilities. I'll enjoy the countryside, I'll enjoy the environment, I'll enjoy other people, I'll enjoy my own superior abilities. But if we examine our condition a little closely, we'll see that actually I'm not the controller. I'm controlled. I'm controlled by the laws of nature. I'm controlled by sickness. When the time comes to get old, there's not much I can do about it. When the time comes to die, everybody dies. And similarly, I'm not really the enjoyer. The more I become involved in the quest for material enjoyment, enjoying facilities, the more I become attached to material nature, which is endlessly changing. So if I become attached to enjoyment, at some point I'm going to come into distress, because either the object of enjoyment is going to change, or it's going to disappear, or I'll simply not be able to achieve what I'm looking to achieve. I'm going to find frustration and disappointment. So at the end, this approach, it seems like nectar in the beginning, but in the end it gives, like poison, deep distress. A typical example of that in the Vedic tradition is the attachment between male and female. At the beginning, it's extremely attractive, it's irresistible. And boy and girl come together, man and woman, and the interaction seems deeply pleasurable, totally absorbing and magical. But you look down the road a little, for a year or 2 years down the road, the results are deeply distressing. We see 50% of the popular songs, they're celebrating the wonderful achievements of love, the wonderful feelings of love. And the other 50% are saying how rotten life is now that you've left me, now that things have changed. So it's like heads and tails, happiness and distress, the two sides of the one coin. And we can't get one without the other. So this passionate, confused approach, although at first it gives initial gratification and satiation, but afterwards it gives distress, disappointment and frustration. The third approach is the approach of indifference and destruction. So in this, when one engages in this approach, I have to say that it's not that everyone belongs in one class or another. Everyone will have a mix. These three modes, say the modes or qualities of material nature, they're like the primary colours, red, blue and yellow. So from those three, you can get practically an infinite range of colour. Similarly, from these three qualities, the three qualities of material nature, creation, destruction and maintenance, you can get a limitless variety of different forms, different approaches, different personalities and so on. And any one particular person also may well have a different approach in different situations. For example, in the family he may have one approach, in business he may have a different approach, with personalities that he finds threatening he'll have another approach, in a situation where he feels confident then he'll have a different approach, like this. So the third approach, the indifferent destructive approach, when people adopt this approach, they'll disregard rules and regulations and principles altogether. They'll do what they want. They'll follow generally base urges, almost like animal instincts. Basic things: eating, sleeping, mating, defending. These are the main qualities of this in this approach. Live according to their own inclination. They're not inclined to deliberation about the purpose of life, and on the contrary, they are inclined to addiction of various sorts, intoxication and addiction of various sorts. Alcohol, tobacco, addictive habits, gambling, excessive association with the opposite sex, excessive sex, like this. These kind of activities which give immediate satiation and lead to harmful results, both for the person involved, both for the people involved, and for others who depend on them, and for society as a whole. When this approach is in operation, sometimes people become very active, but in a very destructive way. And in fact, the more active they are, the more destruction they cause. In the Vedic tradition, it's said that monkeys are the personification of this approach to life, this indifferent destructive approach. So anyone, for example, who's lived in India, especially in Vrindavan where we like to go, the monkeys there are like dacoits. And you'll see they'll deliberately tear up cloth, they'll deliberately break things, they'll deliberately steal people's spectacles and chew them up in front of them, deliberately tear up their books. So all of these things, they're complete rogues. And they deliberately do it to create mischief. So this influence is very prevalent in modern society, and therefore we see the higher qualities in human beings being systematically degraded by this indifferent destructive approach. In addition to these three approaches to life, there's two others that I want to mention. First is transcendentalists. The transcendentalist is somebody who's become completely free from the influence of material nature. By spiritual understanding and realization, they become so absorbed in spirit, in spirituality, that they've become free from the influence of material nature. Still, they're here in the material world, and generally speaking, they have positive regard for other people in the material world, and they want to help others. There's two main classes of transcendentalists. One is those who've become absorbed in the divine light, and they want to attain liberation, freedom from birth and death, freedom from association and limitations of material nature. This is one kind of transcendentalist. The other one is the one who's so absorbed in their relationship with the Supreme Personality that they're completely suffused, saturated with divine love. And consequently, they'll act for the good of society as a whole and in relation, in harmony with the positive principles. But they themselves, actually, they have no needs, addictions, or even they're content with what comes. That's one of these two personalities. The other one is the exact opposite. The first, the transcendentalists, they're in harmony with divine principles, and they act for the benefit of modern society. As much as they act within society, within the world, it's always for the benefit of society, ultimate benefit. The other, we could call a malignant approach. And this approach is directly opposed to the self-consistent principles, the divine principles. It's directly opposed to the natural order in society, directly opposed to the natural order in the universe, deliberately destructive. It's like a mixture of the passionate and the destructive approaches. It's a special destructive power, but also there's a special intelligence that goes with it. And that intelligence is specifically aimed at harming the natural order, reducing the natural order. So this approach also, we can see, is very, very strong in modern society. It's in destroying the fabric of society, destroying knowledge of higher values, destroying confidence in spirituality, and the influence in society is very, very harmful. In the Vedic tradition, this is called Kali Yuga. Kali, the age of Kali, the age of hypocrisy and quarrel. So in this age especially, this asuric, this malignant influence is very, very strong. So these are three main, and then those two approaches to living.